Do not take credit for your father's good deeds. All right? Wanda Sykes. We used to use that expression a lot growing up, trying to psych somebody out, right? Condom. Pull a fast one. She was on ABC's Blackish, kinda black, kinda not, which was apparently, I wouldn't know, I never watched that trash, was apparently about some rich black people, just like her. She's married to Alex Niedbalski, probably some kind of royal Polish last name. French woman, they say. Whoa, man. Oh, man. Look, I'm not trying to make too much of this. I think these are lower level players, okay? More important than you and I, but lower level type of people, if you catch my drift. Anyway, check this out. Wanda, worked as a, well, her mother worked as a banker, and her father, Harry Ellsworth Sykes, was a U.S. Army colonel employed at the Pentagon. So, you know, she's not no small potatoes, okay? Sykes' family history was researched for an episode of the 2012 PBS genealogy program, Finding Your Roots, with Henry Louis Gates Jr. Little known fact, Henry Louis Gates Jr. is working with Bill something Gates Jr. on collecting black people's DNA. Who are they looking for? Some long lost relative or some kind of vaccine that'll, you know, make black people more obedient or something? I don't know. Who knows, right? I got $100 that says that Henry Louis Gates Jr. and Billy Gates Jr. are related if you go far back enough into their genealogy. I don't have the time to do that, but it's all out there. I bet you they're related. There's no doubt in my mind that they are. Anyway, Wanda, that's how you say her name. Wanda's real ancestry was, well, her ancestry was traced back to a 1683 court case involving her paternal ninth great-grandmother, Elizabeth Banks, a free white woman and indentured servant, right? So she was a slave at one point, who gave birth to a biracial child, fathered by a slave who inherited her mother's free status. According to Ir a Berlin, we'll go to Berlin in just a second. Berlin. Sykes' family history is the only such case that I know of in which it is possible to trace a black family rooted in freedom from the late 17th century to the present. Okay? So she's not no small potatoes. How many of you can trace your genealogy all the way back to 17th century? Huh? And why can't you? Because, I mean, some of you may be able to, but unless your people were important, they did not leave a trace, right? So that's an interesting one. But seeing as this one tells us to go to Berlin, I guess we're just gonna go there. Look, I'm not trying to make too much of this. Maybe you'll get the point at some point, but if you don't, that's okay too. Visit languages of the world. Anyway, how many of you are familiar with the R1A and the R1B haplogroup? This is just a teaser for another video, but these people, even though they're similar, there is a marked difference, and it just so happens that the borderline between these two population groups runs roughly alongside the Berlin Wall. Now, have any of you ever wondered why the wall was built through the middle of Germany? Kind of weird, no? I'll talk about that in another video, but just keep that in mind. Speaking of Berlin, that old Slavic city, just across the border from Berlin, you have, oh, come on. You won't be able to see these very well, but trust me, they're there. You have Stettin, you have roughly around here Koszalin, There's Olsztyn. That's an interesting one. And then there is all the way by the Ruskies. There is a Lublin, where they talk kind of funny, right? Berlin, Lublin. I'm sure there's no relationship whatsoever. And then there's this thing, which makes my blood boil looking at this, right? This right here and that right there makes my blood boil. Such a proud Pole that I am. Why does it make my blood boil? Well, because of this. Frankfurt. Okay? Flag of Frankfurt. Now you may think that you have some kind of an autonomy, whatever. This applies to all the countries out there. Definitely all the ones in Europe. You may think that you're sovereign or something along those lines. Nah, fuck all that. That's a lie. So, Piast was a dynasty of kings in Poland that so many of these Polish people are so proud of. It was right around his people's, not my people's, his people's times that they started using that eagle with the crown and the white and the red that you saw, right? And Piast, where was I? Here we go. In over 1,000 years of Polish history, no one else bore the name Piast. I don't know if that's relevant. Anyway, Piast comes from Piasta, or pista in Spanish, which comes from Latin, which means hub, or a road, as in autopista. Yeah? The second relates to Piast, or Piastun, which means custodian, keeper, guardian. So what was he guarding? Okay, well, who were his wards if he was guarding them, right? And what's this hub and road all about? What is that all about? Well, that's a very dark history of the Polish people that I'll tackle in another video. But they say that the takeover by these Piasts, right, these guardians, parallel the development of the Frankish dynasties, the flag of which you just saw, right? So just a bit of a rabbit hole there, something we'll talk about in another video. So Poland was a hub, needless to say, and a railroad of sorts, a road, not underground, above ground, that led to, well, nothing pretty. Anyway, from there on, we're going to go to... Where are we going to go? Queen Charlotte, the Black Queen. It's hilarious how some of these black nationalist groups think they could put a black face on a white woman and just get away with it. Well, they can, right? Because if you were to do that, you'd probably get canceled. But, I mean, suffice it to say, that's a piss-poor Photoshop job. I mean, come on, guys. You could do better than that. Anyway, they do have a point, these African nationalists, talking about her looking kind of like, you know, black girl from Chicago whose ancestors were, for the most part, white. For the most part. So I give them credit, even though they're a little sneaky about it. They do have a point, right? So who was Queen Charlotte? Who was she? Well, she was the proto Meghan Markle. No relationship, I'm sure, to Chancellor Merkel. None whatsoever. Or the city of, what is it called now? Strelitz. That's misspelled right there. That right there, that says Strelitz. That's a Slavic word meaning archer. Now, why would, if you think all these things in the mainstream media are just accidental or they're put there because they make for a good story, well, I mean, there's some truth to that. But if you think all of them are purely accidental and they're not trying to send a message, or two different messages, one to the plebs and one to the royals, okay? If you don't think that's what's happening, that's fine. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, Miss Merkel, from way back in the day, was married to King George III, just like this Miss Merkel from back in the day. And they're both, there's some evidence that Charlotte was from Portugal, where long story short, there were some black people that were brought to Portugal by somebody at some point, and you know, she was a product of somebody banging somebody else from Africa, basically. Very, very, very terribly presented, crude way of talking about history, but that's the long and short of it, basically. It's not all that important, okay? But you could go read about Charlotte and research her, and they'll tell you how she basically, to be crass once again, fucked her way into the middle of the Holy Roman Empire, married King George. She was a girl that, you know, rose to prominence, basically, I would say, sold out. Or maybe was from royal family in the first place, I don't know. But from seemingly humble beginnings, she went up the ranks pretty quickly. And you could read this whole article and they won't mention her humble beginnings, not much at all. But in order to do that, you kind of have to dig around, and you'll find yourself in Vandalia, Illinois, where they'll tell you that they named the city after her. Why her? Well, because she was basically, you know, Daenerys Targaryen, mother of dragons, queen of the Vandals. That's who she was, basically. Okay, I made up that first part, but yeah, she was the queen of the Vandals. Or she came from that tribe. She claimed descent from the Vendish tribe of, they tell you Obodrites, but the name is Obodrici, also called the Vandals, okay? So who were the Obodrites? If you look up the Vandals or the Obodrici, see, Obodriti, they'll tell you, most sources will tell you Germanic, but this one tells you the truth, right? We're a confederation of medieval West Slavic tribes within the territory of Mecklenburg and Holstein. Remember that name? Holstein? That's right. they Germanized all these names, guys. In northern Germany, see Polabian Slavs. Who were the Polabian Slavs? They were the Slavic people that lived past the river Waba, which the Germans changed the name of. So it might be difficult to find their origins. But Polabian just means after Waba, the river, just like Pomeranian, right? To the Swedish or what have you, they were past the sea. Pomeranians. For decades, they were allies of Charlemagne, right? Holy Roman Emperor. She sold out. She sold out her people, basically. Blah, blah, blah. Obodrites. So she's the queen, she was from the tribe of the Vandals, basically. The Slavic tribe that coincidentally, at some point in time, established a kingdom, an empire, in, wait for it, oh, come on, in Africa. So it's possible that, you know, one of her ancestors banged somebody down there, and then by way of Portugal, somebody somehow found themselves back in the original Slavic lands. I don't know. It's not that important, but basically, people who say she's black, and there's evidence of this, part black. Obviously, she's not black. That's ridiculous. The story kind of adds up when you look at the travels of the Vandals. them going through Spain, modern day Portugal, and perhaps connecting um, East Germany, modern day East Germany, right? I'm just talking about geographical areas, with Portugal, with Africa, right? So it makes sense that you could kind of see that maybe, yeah, she does look like she has some African blood, no doubt about it. Some pictures more than others, but it's also up to the painter to interpret what he's looking at, right? And if this indeed wasn't Photoshop, but somebody painted it as such, I guarantee you they, at the very least, chopped off his hands after he did. If not, his head, because damn, he did not. This does not flatter the lady. Let me just put it to you that way. And it has nothing to do with the color. Anyway, what is the point of this video? Reality is really stranger than fiction. And there are a lot of things that are kind of behind closed doors, but at the same time, all out in the open. And, well, they lie, they deceive, they tell us one thing, when in reality, the truth is quite different. So, once again, I wanted to show you that if you do enough digging, you'll see that the Vandals were the Slavs or proto-Slavs, right? There's definitely a connection there on many levels, and you kind of have to dig around to find it, because they'll never tell you on her page that she was, from a Slavic tribe. They'll never tell you that. You're going to have to do some digging around, and you're going to have to read between the lines and so on and so forth. And you're going to have to understand that, some of these names aren't what they tell you they are, right? What does Strelitz mean in German? Does it mean anything? And they called it Mecklenburg, if I'm saying that correctly, /Strelitz, so that all the people that were used to going there, would find their way before, one day they just decide to call it Mecklenburg, which is probably what has happened by now, right? So, yeah, Charlotte of Strelitz from the tribe of Vandals, by way of Africa, probably, right? Makes perfect sense. So, there's tons and tons and tons of evidence telling you that the Vandals were a Slavic tribe, and the tracks and the people trying to cover their tracks, haven't been completely successful in doing that. And I think the reason why they haven't completely covered their tracks is because they're probably still looking for their lost relatives, or trying to figure out where it is that they themselves came from, right? That's why they're obsessed with genealogy. No different than us, right? DNA studies, testing, they're getting together, these Gateses, and creating a database of us versus them for them, and us also for them, right? Whatever it is that they want to do to us genetically, however they want to modify us with their vaccines or what have you, they're going to need that data. While at the same time, maybe they're going to want to make sure to not pollute some of these or destroy some of these royal bloodlines, right? Find some of their lost relatives and tell them not to take the shot, or whatever the case may be, right? I don't know, but if you think that Marco and Merkel and Mecklenburg have nothing to do with the Holy Roman Empire, then you could be right. But I don't know, man. Truth is much, much stranger than fiction. And I would have to disagree with you. Anyway, one last thing before I go. People who do a lot of this sort of research, they will want to, romanticize some of these bastards that have been ruling us forever, and identify with the people who, this is what I wanted to show you, identify with these people that have basically been enslaving us forever, it wouldn't be wise. Mr. Piast, you know, if I go back to that genetic map that I showed you there, um, you know, if they were to analyze the DNA and give us the information of all these ruling families all over the world, you would see just how different they are from you genetically also, I believe. These royal bloodlines, they don't give a damn about us, okay? They will use you to establish their Visigoth Empire, their Swabian kingdom, their empire of the Vandals, of the Ostrogoths, Byzantine, Franks, Germania, whatever the hell, right? They'll use you to establish their empires, but ultimately, they're they will also have a place for you, which is exactly what you're looking at. They're not even beating around the bush on this map. They're just straight up telling you what's up, okay? So all this nicely colored stuff, yeah, that's theirs. And this is where you get to run around. And if need be, they'll go in there and they'll take what they need for whatever reason they need it. Okay? So it's fun doing this research, getting into this and learning our history, but don't repress the dark side simply because it may paint some of these people you've romanticized as the devils that they are. All right? Tell the truth is all I'm saying. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Thank you for watching, and don't blame the son for his father's sins.